Today, we are going to talk about the age-old question of should I bring a tent or should I bring a bivy for bike packing or adventuring or backpacking. So I'm going to compare a couple models. This is the Big Agnes 3-wire hooped bivy, and some of the considerations are weight. So this is 1 pound, 6 ounces, and you can see it's a pretty small little package at 4 inches around and then 14 inches long. We're also going to compare the Big Agnes Tiger Wall tent, and this is a really cool bike packing tent. It's also a really nice small package. Both of these are set up to be small, tidy packages, but we're going to talk about the differences of when to choose a tent, when to choose a bivy. So there's a couple considerations. Obviously, you're going to consider weight and size. So how much does it weigh? How are you going to carry it? If it's on a bike, and we'll show you that in a little bit, where are you going to put it on the bike? How much space do you have? If it's in a backpack, same thing. Where am I going to put it? How am I going to carry it? Other considerations are, where are you going? If you're going to a place like, say, Alaska, where it's snowing, you might need a tent, or you're expecting rain. You're going to the northeast, and you're expecting that you're going to be hunkered down in your tent waiting out a rainstorm. You might want a tent because you're going to have a vestibule, you're going to have protection for your gear, or if you're going light and fast, you might want a bivy. Or if the weather is pretty great and it's fine to be sleeping out, you could go the bivy route. So we're going to set them both up. We're going to look at both the features, and then we're going to put them on some bikes and help you make your own decision. Okay, how are you going to carry it? That's one of the main questions. We've got our tent, we've got our bivy. For bike packing, there's a few options. This Big Agnes tent, the Tiger Wall, is actually a specific bike packing tent. And what's cool about it, it's got really short poles so that they fit in smaller spaces on your bike. So you've got some options. You've either got places to put on your handlebar mount or in a seat bag, or we'll also show you on the gravel bike. So if you're going to put it on the handlebar, this is where the extra weight of the tent might come into consideration, because more weight on the front of your handlebar, it kind of changes the way that the bike handles, especially with the mountain bike where you've got front suspension. So this is a nice slick way to put it on. You just clip it in, strap it up, tighten it, and then that's going to be a nice little tidy package on the front of your handlebar. This specific tent also has a really cool feature where you don't even actually need to use the handlebar harness. The way that this bag is designed is you can clip this directly around your bar if you want to. So you would just have that one little package right on the front of the bar. So in comparison, the bivy is going to be smaller and a little bit lighter, and it's going to allow you maybe to put a couple more things on the front here, maybe a puffy coat or some other clothing that you might need, keeping the front nice and light. Other options will go to the back of the bike. All right, this is where the size consideration, especially with the mountain bike, is really going to come into play. This tent is really not going to fit that well in a seat bag just because of the size and the shape and the suspension. You're going to end up hitting your rear tire, so that with this bike, your only option with the tent is the front handlebar mount. With the bivy, you'd be able to slide this in to a seat bag, and that'll work great. Nice and light, nice and small. Keeping it on the back of your bike, and then that leaves the front open for your clothing or other stuff. With all of this stuff, when you're packing, especially bike packing and backpacking, you want to pack it all at home, try it out, ride it, make sure nothing rubs, make sure everything fits in there, and then everything kind of has a place. It's one of the things I love about packing for an adventure is figuring out where everything's going to go and making sure it's nice and tight and the way that you want it. Something you can think about too with this bivy, for example, You don't have to leave it in this bag. If you wanted to put it in a different bag that made it a different shape, or just stuff it right down in there into the bottom, you could do that too. So you could take the whole thing out of this bag and fit it into a different space if you need to. So you're keeping your poles, keeping all your stuff. But this might fit better if I shove it all the way down into the bottom of that bag. This might make a better bike packing package for me. You get the idea. I don't have to stuff it all the way in there. But don't be closed-minded with, oh, it came in this stuff sack, it is this size. You can kind of reshape things. Putting stuff in bags, though, so that you protect the materials and it's not all rubbing around or getting abraded, but that might be a consideration with a seat bag, and I've done that with sleeping bags too, where you take it out of his bag and you just push it all down into the spaces so that you fill up all the spaces in the bags. All right, now we'll move on. We're gonna go through a little bit of packing, but this time on a gravel bike to kind of show you the options of where to put the tent, where to put the bivy, and how you might decide. You've got a few more options here on the gravel bike because it's rigid and you don't have suspension. You've got some space. So this is actually one spot where the bivy will fit, where the tent will not, is in this half frame bag, which is pretty cool. So you could slide that thing right in there. It's out of the way, tuck it away. You don't have to even get in there for the day, but that's a really nice tidy way to have your sleep system right in the frame bag. You also like the mountain bike, have the option of putting either one on the front handlebar, either with a harness system like this, or again, this tent has straps on the bag, so this can be packed right on the front. Something different with a gravel bike than a mountain bike is you've got drop bars. So that's what makes this Big Agnes Tiger Wall a little bit different, is that it has short poles and it's made to basically be able to fit in that space between your bars. So if you had something longer, you're not going to fit it in there. Same with the hooped bivy, made exactly the right size to tuck really nicely in there and fit between your handlebars. So that's a really cool feature that is kind of specific to bike packing. For backpacking, you don't really have to worry about that kind of stuff, but with bike packing, it's like, where's it gonna fit? So I really love that feature about both of these items, so they'll fit between your handlebars. You've also got the other option, if you're using a rack, again, that you can use a rack because it's rigid, it's a rigid bike, you don't have suspension, so you can put a frame rack on, and that leaves a whole other space where you could strap your tent. In this situation, it's nice and out of the way. You could strap your bivy there, nice and out of the way, and you've still got room for a lot of other things. And that, you know, a lot of times people like using a rack and putting things on the rear because it keeps the weight off the front of the handlebar. And so your handling stays nice and light in the front. You put light items like clothes up front, and then your heavier items like your sleep system can come towards the back of the bike and not affect your handling as much. So those are options on the gravel bike. Still, I don't know if you've made your decision yet, but the things to consider are, what does it weigh? Where can it fit? What are the features? And then how are you going to put it on your bike or in your backpack? Okay, so we're going to set these up so you can see the features, you can see the setup, and help make your decision. So we'll start with the Big Agnes 3-wired hooped bivy. So there are bivy sacks that don't have a hoop, and we're going to show you this feature of why would you want a hoop. And it's pretty nice. It adds a little bit, one pole, a little tiny bit of extra weight, but what it does when it's set up, you'll see, is it actually keeps the material off your face. So if you're in a really cold environment like Alaska, or it's raining, just the condensation of your breath is often getting your bivy wet. And so by keeping it off your face, you're allowing some space for you to breathe, literally, and it keeps the material dry. So, and a little bit less of that claustrophobic feeling. All right, so let's roll this out. people worry too. They're like, well, bivvies, are they waterproof? I'm just gonna get wet. They're made of the same kind of waterproof material as a tent. It's just a tiny little tent that just your body fits into. How's that? Hi. I do love this because you can see if you didn't have the hoop, this is going to be laying right on your face and it just feels really claustrophobic. But otherwise, I love this bivy, like, because you're not really hanging out in bed. When it's bedtime, you're going to sleep. And this is off your face. You've got a bug tent or you've got the waterproof. You can pull out to be fully enclosed if it was raining or snowing. I used to use bivvies a lot that didn't have a hoop, and I gotta say, I'm a complete convert now because the hoop is just so awesome. All right, and you get up and you pack it on your bike and you roll it all the way. Okay, so this is the Big Agnes 3-wire hooped bivy at 1 pound 6 ounces, and you saw the folded up 4 inches by 14 inches. So a really nice small package, but that still gives you tons of waterproof protection and kind of a nice spacious feeling. So not quite the spacious feeling of a tent, but definitely totally doable when lightweight and the smallest package possible is what you really are going for in your adventure. All right, let's do the setup for the Big Agnes Tiger Wall Ultra Light bike packing tent. What I love about all Big Agnes stuff, I'm just gonna say, is it's designed by people who actually use it. So a lot of really cool features, really well thought out. Even the way that this bag is designed is such a tidy little package that can clip on, fit on your handlebars. But let's see how it sets up. I would typically, for the bivy or the tent, have a really small piece of ground cloth. You can use Tyvek, you can use like an emergency blanket, the really thin Mylar, but you definitely want to protect these. These tents are super lightweight, they're durable, but you want to protect them from the ground. So I would have, typically would have a small, super light ground cloth to put under here. Get the poles set up. All right, and just clip these in. So this tent, you can see, you can use it just with the mesh. So it'd be kind of like if it were just buggy, but it were really hot, you could use this tent that way. Or of course, we've got the waterproof fly that we'll put on top. It makes it basically makes it a 3-season tent. And kind of, if people are wondering the difference between a 3-season and a 4-season tent, 3-season is probably sufficient for most people, unless you're like, you know, in the Arctic and the winds are blowing, you know, like 40 miles an hour and you're spending a lot of time in that kind of situation. What makes a tent 4-season is a lot of the wind aspect to it. But even in winter environments, for most people, 3-season is going to be absolutely sufficient. You can already kind of start to see how big this is. It's definitely doable for 2 people. You'd want to like each other, but super cushy if it's just you. So we can get an idea for the size. It's got doors on each side, which is really nice. So if you are two people getting in there together, everybody, you don't have to crawl over each other to get out. So you've each got two sides. You can use this as a mesh bug tent, would be great. You could even take this alone if, like, say you're going to Baja or you're going somewhere that's really warm, but it might be buggy. You might not even need to bring the rain fly. Keep in mind, you don't have much privacy when you're in there like that, but it could totally be a summer, like, beachy kind of a tent. One of the features I'll show you before I put the fly on, because you can still see it, is I don't want to get grass inside. Always take your shoes off when you go in the tent. You can see this big mesh piece right here. This is a storage. This is kind of somewhere to, like, throw your headlamp. It's basically like a shelf that's inside the tent. So it's a really nice feature to throw your headlamp, throw your toiletry bag, or anything else. They've also got pockets right here for, like, a cell phone next to you while you're sleeping, one on each side. These little features, they don't seem like a big deal, but it's the kind of design feature that makes a tent, like, really usable, like you could live in it. So I really love this shelf thing. I think it's a really cool feature. All right, let's put the fly on. So what this does, which is amazing, especially if you're bike packing, backpacking, is you've now both sides have a vestibule, one for each person, where you can fit a whole ton of gear. So you can have, you know, your clothing bag in there protected. You can have your shoes, your helmet, so that you're not taking up space inside your sleeping space of the tent, but you've got this whole extra gear space to keep your stuff dry. So I love this vestibule. Even if I, you know, it wasn't going to rain, the fly is worth it, because even kind of just having your stuff out of the sun, you know, or having it kind of protected from the wind or bugs or anything else. So that's a really cool feature that I love. All of these are guy lines. So again, the whole point of it is to stake these out to pull the fly away from the tent so the condensation doesn't build up on the inside, and you've got sort of this double wall kind of a thing where the airflow can keep you from getting wet from the inside out. So that is the Tiger Wall, Big Agnes Tiger Wall, ultralight bike packing tent. A ton of features, as you can see, but it really depends on what type of adventure you're doing. Again, if I'm going solo by myself, I know the weather is going to be great, I might take a bivy. Or if I'm in Alaska where I'm carrying a ton of gear and I just don't have the space for a tent, I might do something like the bivy instead. But hopefully this will help you decide on, you know, there's really no right answer of tent versus bivy. It's your choice depending on your adventure, the space you have on the bike, who you're going with, what the weather's like. So hopefully this helped you kind of make your decision. And no two adventures are the same. So you might take a bivy sometimes, you might take a tent the other times. But if you like this video, give us a little thumbs up and let us know your questions and what else you want to hear from me. Thanks for tuning in. Woo! I'm slowing down for this baby. Oh yeah!